All right, Karin Rozell, we're so
What?
excited to talk to you.
It's Karin.
Oh, I did.
You're bringing me flashbacks.
Take
My
two.
first grade teacher.
Take two. All right, here we go. Hey, Karin Rozell, thank you so much for joining us on Health Coach Radio. We are really excited for this conversation.
Me too. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So I want to hear all about this notion of a happy little practice, because as the admissions director here for a school, I think a big chunk of the people that I talk to, that's exactly kind of what they're looking for. So we're going to go into depth as to kind of what you really mean by that. But before we do, if you wouldn't mind giving us kind of the 3 to 5 minute like origin story of how you started down this path and how you landed with this business model.
Well, it kind of happened organically after, I would say, almost 12, 15 years in coaching. I had my baby, my first baby. And at that time, I was what I considered to be on the fast track of coaching, where I had my first event, I had my big money months. And then I was like pregnant and in the bathtub. And I'm like, what am I working so hard for? I'm like, what is another 100,000 or what is it going to do? And it occurred to me that I already had what I wanted, and I don't mean that in a very kind of, I was happily married. I was, working the hours. Why was I like crushing myself to keep going and keep going? And essentially that's when I decided to kind of get off the rat race, if you will, or the idea that success in coaching meant bigger, hire more coaches, have more and more people at your events, and kind of more distance yourself from your clients, and to find another way. And it was a good idea, but I didn't really get into it until like the baby arrived. And then I was just like, I need another way to work, because it turns out I didn't really care that much about being famous, traveling anymore for conferences and speaking there. I was very surprised. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not who I think I am. I had to find another way. And long story short, second baby came. I was out there on a walk with the baby, and I'm like, this is when like coaching exploded. And I was talking to more and more people who were like, where's my 6-figure business? And they just kind of wanted what they wanted without doing the work, kind of.
Right.
And I was like, wait, you need to have a little practice before you have the big practice. And actually, if you do your little practice right and orient it around what makes you happy and you structure it correctly, it can really be big enough. And that's, it's not for everyone. I mean, by all means, go big if that's what you really want to do. But I think for a lot of coaches, most of us aren't built or have a desire to build an empire. And if that's the case, there's got to be another way. So that's the origin story, if you will.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so I heard a couple things. I'm not who I think I am, or I'm right. Or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I kind of translated that as is I don't want what I thought I originally wanted. Right now that I'm actually heading there and I see what that's going to require of me, that's not it.
That's right.
Okay.
It was really, and I had a kind of crisis of my identity, if you will. Because at that point, I was still in my early 30s, and I was like, well, if I'm not like the uber successful, always striving, ambitious person, then who am I? And well, the way that I think about it is like, you can still keep that ambition, but you orient it around what's most important to you. Because like a little practice requires big thinking, but it doesn't require like big structures.
Yeah. When you talk about a little practice, I want to quantify this, because you don't mean tiny. Like, we're not talking about like chump change.
No,
right?
That's really good. Okay. I'm so glad you brought that up, because happy little practice, happy means orienting yourself around solving for enough and what makes you happy. And for some people that's 6 figures. Some people that's like, listen, I'm going to make 50,000 or 40,000 working 25 hours. And that's going to make me happy, or multiple 6 figures, whatever that is. But so you first solve for happy, because that informs what you mean by little. Okay. And so by little, I mean a minimalist structure where you can be a company of one and maybe hire freelancers, have an assistant, but you don't really need to manage the people.
Yep.
And by little, I mean a small volume of clients serve supremely well at a premium price point.
I get this. This makes me really, this lights me up, because that's the kind of practice I think I always wanted. And, you know, I think I've run into this too, where it's like, well, the next step is the empire, and then it's thought leadership, and then it's like, you know, I I really, really like carrying a dozen clients and just like servicing the heck out of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was hosting a webinar a couple days ago where we're talking about scaling the business, and one of the principles of scaling a business is like, and this is absolutely legitimate. This is completely legitimate, but the idea is running launches so that you can have this sort of predictable income, and every quarter you're bringing in chunks of change. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to, you know, I don't want to do a launch. I just like having my books open, clients coming in. So I really want to thank you, because I feel like this is language that a lot of times coaches don't get to hear. And I think it opens up a lot of, it's just like it's like a sigh of relief almost.
Well, I used to do launches like you just described as well. We had this part of my business called the Best Little Book Program, and now my husband takes it over and leads it. And we would just open and close it, and I would have little babies, and I would be like the one doing all the marketing, and it would just be a grind. And I didn't have a team, you know, I didn't have other people to do the marketing for me. And it was a lot of stress, anxiety. I'm like, is this gonna work? Or I got to send that other email. And I found myself to be like the bottleneck of it, because I didn't want to hire a team. And of course we can get into my head about like, oh, maybe you should. And I just wasn't that interested in it. So I had to figure out a way to get out of the launches. All my clients can start at any time. I'm like over the kind of like, you have to, you know, manipulate them to sign up.
Yeah.
And that's easier because I don't have to convince people, right? We don't like, part of the launch thing is really great if you have a team to pull it off, right? And it does create a big payday, but I'm more interested in like just consistency, not intensity.
I think with launches too, there's a heavy reliance on automation. I think that's kind of what you're getting. Like the emails have to go out timely, and it has to be like a program running, like a learning management system or an online course or something, like it's a group, or it's a different infrastructure. Like a launch-based business is a completely different infrastructure. And my happy little practice is me on the phone with my clients one at a time, and I really like it, and I don't want to feel shamed by the fact that I like that orchestration of a practice. Not that I am feeling shamed, but you know, when I attend sort of like personal development events, I go to a lot of events where, you know, business coaches and successful coaches are speaking, and they've kind of all moved toward this automated group launch based thing. And it's like, well, I guess that's what we're supposed to do, but I don't want to. I just don't. I should say, yeah.
You know, there's a concept that we used to use in the finance world that applies here. And I kind of heard you say it, that having more is really only important in the absence of having enough, right? And not realizing that what you have is enough. So this exercise of, you know, when you were telling your story about sitting in the bathtub and realizing I have everything I want. I have everything I need, right? So how important is really having more relative to the work that goes in to getting more?
Right.
Right. And I know, and I know Erin and I can relate to this. We both came from other careers that were very high powered, very high paying, go, go, go. And we just didn't want that anymore. That was part of the reason that we left. And I do think that this is the case for many people that are looking for a career change, is they want out of the damn rat race. Right. They like the idea of being their own boss and having that own autonomy. And I think what happens with people is they get caught up in, now they own a business, but really it's just an even bigger job that pays you less for more hours.
Right.
Right. Because you're in this. So I would love to really kind of dig into the framework and the structure of this happy little practice.
Well, I will speak to what you just said, which is, and also what Erin talked about, like some of the people, when I first have a call with them, they're like, they have a little bit of goal shame. Like it's not enough to want what they want.
I feel that.
And I think that comes culturally from like the industrial revolution of bigness is relevance, you know, and only that is relevance. But now we have all the platforms and all the tools that used to only belong to big business, and we can be relevant and have a great sense of impact. Like my clients who have 20 or 30 clients a year, they don't ever lack that sense of impact. They never feel that, you know, but we somehow get in our head that impact means like thousands upon thousands in a room, you know? So I think that goal shame thing is a cultural thing, not just like, and I think it's been conditioned in us. And as to the structure, so do you mean like how it works, that kind of thing?
Yeah, like, you know, I mean,
Okay.
I guess like what goes into having a happy little practice, or does that change from practice to practice, from person to person?
Yep. I think that there is a framework that stays with every person, myself included. And the premise is, how can you make your greatest contribution with a minimal, you know, effort? And by that, I don't mean like, there's some of that in the coaching industry where like, look, I hardly work.
Right.
You know? But like my clients, we're not afraid of working. Like we like to work, and we want to get, we don't want to recreate like the rat race that you described, either for health reasons. Many of the health people I work with, they're like, I need to take care of myself. Or some of the people are in their early retirement, and they're like, I need to fund the next 20 years before I touch my retirement. They don't want to recreate this craziness that you described about. So the structure is all about one thing. Like you have to have a one thing message, because we can't, like, you see a lot of the big coaching companies have many offers and a very broad message, but that works when, you know, you have a platform and lots of followers and have a big volume of clients. So it starts with the structure is one message that you get like on board and say, I'm going to do this one thing. Like I'm going to solve weight loss for, I don't know, a certain kind of person. You know, I'm going to help people have better relationships who have small businesses. Something that you're going to own. Okay. And then that will be like, what's your one offer? You can have tiers of that offer so that there's multiple price points, but price points that are above average. And I say average in coaching is $2,500 to $3,500 for a coach that is supporting themselves well, right? Doesn't mean you don't have to start there, but it also will get you to six figures if that's really important to you. So one message, one offer, okay, and one clear, and when I say by one message, you need to have like one audience, like one problem that you solve for one kind of people that you can find in groups. That will inform your offer. And then one kind of marketing. And I teach my clients two things. Like your marketing has to be like, get you in front of your ideal clients and allow you to invite them to have you only making one offer, not like do this little class, do this free opt-in, come do all these little things that I have. One thing, which is have a session with you. And the session is you can call it whatever you want, but that session is designed to decide if we're going to work together or not. It's more diagnostic rather than I'm going to try to coach the heck out of you and amaze you and hope that you hire me. And then, you know, the other part of your marketing is you have to have a keep in touch. Okay, so everyone's like, should I be on social? Like your keep in touch can include social, but for most of us, that's an email newsletter that how you do it, you can do videos, you can do writing, how you do it is your own. That makes it unique, but we all have to keep in touch and we all have to get in front of our clients. And you only need two things.
Yeah.
And what happens for most clients or most people that I see in coaching is the minute that the marketing strategy gets hard is when they change their marketing strategy. And next thing you know, they have like half dozen half-baked marketing. And this is where like this separates the little girls from the big girls, the little boys from the big boys. Like you have a problem with your marketing, you fix it, you know, whether it's internal, external and stuff. So it's all one thing. And then the operations of your business follows all of that through. Like teach my clients, like you're going to do 1 hour a day of marketing because that's enough to get right when you're doing one thing really, really well. Most of my clients do speaking in a variety of different formats. There's other things you can do, but it tends to work best for people who love to educate And I don't mean the kind of speaking where you're like super slick and like doing this song and dance. I like fail terribly at that. And I tried. Believe I might have stumbled on the stage once. So the one thing just ripples all the way down to your day-to-day operations. You do one thing a day. I'm either keeping in touch, you know, and over time you build this consistency rather than intensity, and that allows you to kind of stay in the game.
Ooh,
I think I got all the pieces.
I love all that. I mean, I love that one thing approach. One thing, because like you mentioned, in the context of marketing efforts, people will kind of have these half-baked marketing efforts, not one thing that's solidly producing or performing. But I see that too in programming. We see that with our clients a lot, who are like, well, I'm going to do a 21-day program and a 30-day program and a 6-week program and a 6-month program, and I'm going to do a group program, and I'm going to do it's like, whoa, like just get kind of good at one thing. And I think that's a message that's also not shared enough from the business coaches in our midst. But I even really love, 1 hour a day on marketing your one product. Yeah. That's completely doable. And I don't know about you, Laura, or anybody listening, but sometimes if I look at my calendar and it's like, oh, I don't have any time today, I'm just not going to do any marketing today. But I always have an hour. There's always an hour I can find. Like, let's be realistic. So for some reason we think if I can't, like, you know, block off a whole day to work in my business, then there's no point in even starting. And that's not the way to success.
Well, but most of my clients are parents or are in a stage of life where they don't want to work more than 25 hours a week or can't. So so the idea of having big swaths of time to do anything just like isn't really sustainable. No. So I needed something that, I live in the Northeast on the border of Vermont, and we have snow days. So when the, you know what hits the fan, I know, like, I can do a follow-up, I can do a thing, you know, I can squeeze it in, I can do it at night if I need to, but those things are rare, right? And I also know that if I miss a day, there's this compounding effect that happens that it's okay. Like, I'll still be in business 6 months down the road. Now, the thing is, when you do your hour of marketing, like all the other things you get before, like your message, your offer, all of that has to be like spot on. Otherwise, like, you're just selling like coaching, and people don't want, like, they want the solution. Yep. Like, help me figure out how to parent my special needs kid, you know, that kind of thing. So then, like, when you're doing your hour marketing, I call it the golden hour, right? There's some other operational things. Like, once you, let's say, book a talk, you don't prepare for that talk during your golden hour. We move that into, like, the operations into what I call special project time, where you're preparing for the thing that you need to deliver or whatever. But also, we're not doing, let's say we do speaking. I tell my clients, like, only one talk. You need a signature talk, because you and I don't have time to recreate talks all the time. And it is enough to get right. Like, it's enough to get right to become booked regularly as a speaker or a podcast speaker, all kinds of venues you can do that. But then the other thing to get right is, like, the consistency, the ability to, like, discern, like, that your golden hour is only for booking new business. And then the rest of the time, like, once you have your signature talk down, for example, you don't have to kind of spend more time on that. Just keep booking talks. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Totally. Yeah.
Actually, and the idea of creating a signature talk is making my wheels spin. Like, I don't do a lot of speaking engagements, but I could, I guess. But I don't have a signature talk. And if you sat down and kind of came up with one, a lot of stuff could unpack from that. You know, like your whole marketing efforts. I mean, well, I guess it all kind of relates, like, because you're talking about, you know, do one thing. So we all have our little space that we own. Yeah. Dolphin training. Okay. So dolphin training is the space that I own. Let's just go with it. So I'm going to create a signature talk about dolphin training, and my product is about dolphin training, and my marketing efforts, like, coming up with a signature message. Well, that's I guess that's marketing job one anyway.
Yeah, it is the ones. Absolutely. Sometimes I'll talk to people. So how people become, like, I only do one thing in my marketing. I'm like, I educate, I enlighten, and then if it makes sense, like, you can have a session with me. And then a portion of those become clients, and a portion, it's goodwill, and they move on and find a better fit, and that's fine too. But Where was I going with that? Oh, the dolphin. Go ahead.
Dolphin train.
So when you work with clients, do you start there? Like, let's talk about your
They're like, I need to, like, they're not signing up for my thing. I'm like, let's start at the beginning and make sure your message is on point. Sometimes the message is, and they just need to, like, their marketing is not on point. You know, it has to start with the marketing because it answers who you're going for and what problem. So it has to be that message is job one, and making sure that's compelling and that other people care about it. Right. And then you can put together your program, tiers of program, right? And it doesn't have to start, if you're brand new, you may not want to start at 2,500 or 3,500. You know, you may need to start and work your way over the next year or two to get to where you want to be, create a body of proof that your work works. Then you can update kind of your front of the house, you know, get the back of the house working, but then your marketing becomes about that one thing, which is really, like, I can't create a lot of new content myself.
Right.
But I can't because of the nature of, I have 25 hours to see clients, do the marketing. And at some point when your business is like, gets more mature, you can also go deeper with that rather than broader. Like, hire a podcast booking service, or you can, you know, do Facebook ads, which is, I think, an advanced strategy, not where people should start.
Yeah.
You can do more things, but not like go broader, but just go deeper in your marketing.
So this whole thing is just lighting me up from the standpoint of relevance to, I think, the typical. So here's what we know about kind of health coaches is people that enroll in the course. Some of them are coming from the industry, like legitimately they're just adding a coaching portion to their existing business. So there's a chunk of those people. But I don't think this is unique to our school. I think it's true of any health coaching program, is a huge chunk of people that are looking to make this a second career. And they are going to have to build this on the side because they are not in a financial position to just up and leave and then build this business from scratch. And so that's what I think holds people back from investing in themselves, enrolling in the course, seeing what this can actually be for them, because they're thinking, where the heck am I going to find the time? I have a full-time job and a family, right? And my answer is always, well, it can be done, because if I can do it, you can do it. There's absolutely nothing special about me, right? I know that you can do it, but all of this one message, one offer, 1 hour, one thing at a time is totally doable for somebody coming from that place, which is a large chunk of people moving into this realm. So thank you. I just want to thank you for putting some perspective around that and making it okay to do this one step at a time and want to slow things down. Because if you are so overwhelmed with just the idea and the notion of how much work goes into this, you never get started.
I have to tell you, part of the reason it was like a self-preservation for me and my own life and my own family and like work life, but also like the people I was talking to, like, it's like I was talking to people who were like, no, just give me my 6-figure business. I just like, I need to get there fast. And I'm like, well, I didn't get there fast. And like, there's been in my almost 20 years of coaching, which I don't know if that sounds good these days or like really old. I don't know, but I know there might've been a handful of clients who like got their business off within the first year, like off. Like last year, one of my clients within, you know, she was a doctor, within 3 months left her full-time doctor position. She's a doctor. People like do what they say.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great network. Okay. And, you know, I think those are unicorns and they don't happen. You know, she did all the work and all that stuff, but it doesn't happen normally. It takes 2 to 4 years to get a business off the ground.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because oh my gosh, I have been on the record from the beginning saying, if you are coming from scratch, right, particularly building something on a part-time basis, you have got to give this 3 years at least to go from 0 to supporting yourself full-time in a coaching practice. Because one other thing that I was going to say earlier, and we went down a different direction, is many of the people that have scaled big, right? So people come to this because they want to coach and they want to help people. Many people that are that get to that point where they're scaling big, they're not coaching people anymore.
No,
that's not what they're doing anymore, right? They are marketers. They are business owners, which is completely fine. And most of them are then just building courses, running some sort of group, selling a product, or employing other coaches. And completely fine, but it's not coaching. And I would venture to say that everyone that's now there often started out coaching, you know, and they built this and sort of moved forward. So I also think people, again, asking, why am I in this? What do I really want to be able to do? I do think some people probably eventually get burnt out of that one-to-one, you know, some people probably do, and then they want to move on to something else. But
I have kind of found, like, through finding different types of mentors, that I still have one-on-one experience with clients, but I do it in a leverage way. But I'm also like 20 years in. So I do have clients in kind of this group, but I am hands-on. I'm editing their materials. I am coaching them weekly in a small group, and my groups are tiny, right? But I charge a premium for that because my colleagues don't do that, right? They are CEOs. And I think it was Tony Robbins who said there's 3 kinds of business owners. There's the CEO, the manager, and the artist. And it's really important for you to know which one you are. And I'm like, I'm definitely not a manager because I've like never managed people. I've been like self-employed since in my 20s. And CEO, I don't really want to be that. And I like artisanal things. I like more kind of, I like successful artists and who they like. I feel a lot of inspiration from like looking at more artistic companies outside of the coaching that made me feel like, okay, they are a business. You have to think like a business owner, but they're running things differently. I want to find the companies of one that are doing really well and aren't. So you do like, could I do now after 20 years, just back-to-back one-on-one coaching? I wouldn't want to do that. But my clients are thrilled because they need to be at that place, right? And now I found a way to still be hands-on in a hybrid. It's some private and some small group. So there's ways that you can still kind of leverage and scale a little bit without feeling like you're disconnected from your clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking about this too. This is a bit of a different sort of vantage point. So kind of go with me on this. But so it comes down to this idea of people feeling like they need to leap into this career. Take the leap, you know, oh, it's a leap. And we've talked a lot that the leap is almost wholly unrealistic for a grown-up that has to pay a mortgage and support, you know, a household. So the 25 hours a week, the happy little practice, I mean, here's where my mind went. When I left my professional career, what I ended up doing was cobbling together a bunch of things. I picked up a contract with a smoothie bar, helping them revamp their menu. I picked up a contract with a cafe, same thing. I was coaching as well. So these 3 things put together gave me enough to pay my mortgage. And so building a happy little practice, a 25-hour-a-week practice, would also enable somebody to go get a personal training gig, or, you know, go work at a natural food store. Like, you could do a couple things and put them all together to shore up your income until your coaching business got to the point where you could let those other things go. It's just another way of looking at the building a happy little practice. Because, you know, leaping from a 40-hour a week work week where you're getting paid every 2 weeks just for sitting in your desk is not feasible. I would say it's not feasible for anybody. I think it's an irresponsible decision to make, and we don't want to promote irresponsibility. But it's like, look, you can cobble some stuff together, and health coaching can be part of that while you figure it out, right?
Yes. You know, you all must have heard or read the Big Magic book by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's about the life of creating for a living, you know, and she's a writer, and I've never felt like I was like creative and like I'll draw and dance or things like that. But having my own little business has forced me to see like there's different forms of creativity. And there's been stages of my practice where I needed to cobble things together, you know, especially in the early years. And it gave me, she talks a lot about in that book of like being patient with your art. She's like, when my writing wasn't supporting me, I worked as a waitress. You know, and when my health coaching wasn't supporting me as much as I worked in a health food store, which was really great, and sold supplements. You know, I was a health coach at the time. I coached for a coaching school, which got me a lot of experience and a lot of confidence. It wasn't a high paying gig, but cobbled things together, you know? And I think we need to not be ashamed about that, because that's kind of the reality for many people, unless you're independently wealthy. And some people are,
Yeah.
you know, that they can ride things out. But I just think like for the rest of us who have to kind of, I love it when my clients have to keep their job, because I'm like, oh, game on. Now you will focus, because it's rather than it being like a diminishing thing, it's an asset. Like I see it as an asset that I have few hours. It really allows me to like, the things I want to do in my practice, the happy little practice version, I had a desire for that for many years, and I just didn't allow myself to go for it because I thought, that's not how you do it. That's not how my mentors are doing it. They're like superstars. And now I'm like, well, I only have 25 hours, so I better like my clients. I'm not going to take on the clients that like are pain for me. I mean, not be a pain for somebody else, or who are giving me a hard time. You know, it's just, I'm not going to do it. You know, because I'll think about it, because my practice is small. Sometimes I dream about my clients. I wake up, I'm like, marketing needs to go like this. It's just dirty. Or when I'm cooking. So I better kind of like have this great relationship with my clients. So it forces me to have really healthy boundaries about like what I do and what I don't, all that stuff. I think it's an asset. I think it's an asset if you're willing to kind of, you only have 8 hours to start with. Like my client who just signed on yesterday, we figured out, because I want to figure out how much time do you have? What's realistic? Well, she was trying to build it through like having the right opt-ins and having a 327 product. I'm like, that's not going to get you there anytime soon. I'm like, would you work with people one-on-one? She's like, I would love to do that. I thought this is what I had to do. I'm like, you had 8 hours. We need to know exactly what you need to do during that time, so you don't show up at your desk and like, I guess I'll go on Facebook.
Yes.
Focuses
your effort.
Forces you to focus in a really good way, because we have not, as a generation, not been trained like in our schooling how to manage ourselves.
No.
We've been trained to kind of go work for people.
Yeah. Managing time is something that there was a lot of things that I think could be taught in schools that would just make more efficient, productive adults that isn't being taught, right?
Honestly.
And prioritization, right? Prioritizing both importance, but also things based on what's important to you and your own value, what needs to be done now, how to time block, right? And prioritize your time. And none of that stuff is really taught anywhere.
No. And when you work in a professional, like a full-time career, your time is blocked for you. Like you show up at work and it's like, I got this meeting and then I got this call and then I got lunch and then there's this. And so then when I remember when the first time I left my job, I was just throwing caution to the wind. I was like, okay, I'm going to go work from home, build my coaching business. I'd sit down at my computer and I'd be like, wandering, you know, and then I would just mop the floor. Yeah. Like I could not focus my time. And I think that like working in the corporate world broke down my ability to do that. Like we really, like Dolores' point, we don't have that ability to focus on. You kind of have to learn it. But to your point, Karin, like somebody who's holding their full-time job and has precious little time to work on their business has honestly no choice but to focus, which is actually a great way to get started.
It is. Yeah.
So I have a question. Do you find when that's the case, and do people feel a little stumped as to where they should be focusing their time and prioritizing? Because I could see someone who's kind of new to this entire thing and wanting to get their business off the ground and running, feeling like they have their list of things that need to get done, but it looks so big and daunting that they're just overwhelmed. They don't even know where to start. You know, do you find that this is kind of an issue, and how do you help folks through that?
I think it's like the issue of our times. I think it's not just coaches where there's so many options, which is fantastic, but it's overwhelming. And and it can be very paralyzing. Like there's an overwhelming amount of messaging that says go big or go home. So then, you know, what do you do? So the way, like a classic coaching concept out of overwhelm is to radically simplify. Like I started my coaching practice outworking people. I was young and single and didn't know any better. And I really thought you just do whatever it takes, including killing yourself on the way there to success. But I think now I know what I can do, and I know what my clients can do, is that we can do one thing really well. We can do one thing a day, you know, and the motto is one thing at a time until it's done. We're going to knock down the dominoes one at a time. So the mental game around that, I always tell my clients, like, half like mindset coach, just to help you unlearn the kind of the habits of like, you have to do it all at once and you have to get there yesterday. You know, all the commercials we see, like push the easy button, it should be easy. Like the number one thing, once we get them out of overwhelm, get past that by simplifying the one thing in a series of steps that we talked about, is then like, oh, it may take longer. Oh, it's a little bit harder. Like the mental game around it, because everything around us as a culture has told us it should have happened yesterday and faster and sexier. You know, what do you do when you go to talk and there's 3 people? It's not so glamorous, but you still can walk away with a client, you know?
Absolutely.
So I just want to circle back. You were mentioning, you dropped sort of a price range, $2,500 to $3,500. What's the, what kind of package are we charging for that amount for?
So everybody asking that, like, well, how long should the program be and how many sessions? And the short answer, and there's a long answer, the short answer is like, first you have to know what you're solving. That has to be worth that much. Like, and by that I mean like you the coach are worth that much. Like charge what you're worth is like crazy talk to me, because like your worth is not your business, right?
Right.
So what I mean by that is $2,500 to $3,500. We need to, tell me your question again. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I just want to know kind of what the
structure.
Yeah, the structure of that. Yeah. The only reason I ask is because like my program solves a problem and I don't charge that much, but it's only an 8-week program. You know, like I want to just kind of wrap my brain around what kind of program we're putting together for that price point. Because I love the price point and I love that people will ask that, but what does it look like?
So first, like when you get your mind around like, is this worth, like you can literally do some math, like how it's going to save them that much. Like the average person pays $2,500. This was years ago in co-pays, and it doesn't get them healthier, right? This will get them healthier, right? If you're doing health coaching, and it pays them dividends, it keeps paying. So one, if you know the value of your offer, literally like financial, emotional, physical, go beyond the immediate physical benefits. How is it going to affect their career, their future, their relationships? You need to really know that. So that way you are sold yourself like, this work is like a sweet deal. Then you need to decide like, what do I need to guide them through to get this done? And not sell them half the problem. You may sell the structure in this series of like, the first 90 days, we're going to do this. Okay. Because it doesn't matter on the length. Like if you can solve a problem in 8 weeks, should you charge less? Even though that somebody else takes 6 months to guide somebody through? Like, not really. Like people want speed. If you can do it faster, great. So the length is not the thing. First, the mindset, really clear on the value of your offer, like all the things. And then what do you need to put in that offer to get that done? Obviously that they have to do the work, right? You can't eat the broccoli for them and so on.
Right.
And then you can still choose to kind of go lower to get yourself up to speed. But typically I always like, if it's a brand new coach, I'm like, what can we solve in 90 days? Yeah. That's not a huge ask for people, right? Some of the way that I coach, I get the first thing done in 10 weeks and the other one takes 4 months or more, depending on where they're at. So I don't charge by the length of time, I charge by the value of this. And I used to have people like, let's work together for 6 months or a year. And now I think the way that coaching has evolved is like, I think it's really hard to sell that. You have to like really have a lot of conviction and proof for people to kind of commit to that kind of like, half a year. So if you can take this big thing that you do, let's say it would take a year, and you chunk it down into like 90-day or 4-month, like in terms of answering your question about the structure.
Right.
But it really isn't about like,
okay,
it's only 8 weeks in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So the price tag is to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that could take any length of time.
Right. Yes. Okay. Although if it's somebody new, unless like if somebody's really experienced and can pull off and say, I'm going to need you to work with me for a year.
Yeah.
Like, frankly, I need people to work with me for 2-3 years to tell them everything I know.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But I still start there because that would freak them out. And now I also don't want to work with people for a year if I don't know them.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, and I can see, so for example, I mean, more than half of my individual clients end up re-upping for another sort of 12 weeks, right? Because, they'll come, now that I've been doing this long enough, I know realistically what can be accomplished in 12 weeks, right? And inevitably they have found success, but they don't feel ready. They are still on their journey and they can want to continue. So they continue to sort of re-up for another 12 weeks or what have you. But, and I'm still kind of, as far as what people are paying for is my time. Yeah. So I need to go through that exercise of really rethinking sort of the value of the end result for my packages and maybe programs that I'm building out.
Something like I made up. It's like values-based consulting, real, like I figured this started happening for me. I remember when I was making the shift from health coaching to business coaching, and I charged $50 an hour. I'm like, I'll do your website, or I do this, and I wouldn't be done. Some people would run out of money because they didn't really have that much. And then at $3,000, some people couldn't afford it, or $50. I'm like, there's always going to be people who can't afford it.
Right.
Well, might as well just decide. And it feels awful to me to kind of give half of a result.
Right.
It feels awful to me to be in coaching programs where I just get a little bit of the solution, so that way I'm promised the next solution. And there's a little bit of kind of like ascension to move all the way up the levels of coaching that is often marketing. And I'm like, I decided I didn't want to do that every way that I coach offers a very specific result, provided they don't bail and disappear, obviously. Right. So I find that to be a lot easier to quote unquote sell. I'm not selling like the details of like, all right, we're going to meet this time and we're going to meet this amount of time, becomes like the boring details after we've like, this is what we need to do and at this time frame.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of being able to articulate that by the end of this 12-week period, making certain assumptions, because you're not paying me to do the work for you. Sorry. You've got to do the work, right? You are going to be working. I'm going to be guiding, right? I'm going to be your cheerleader. I'm going to, whatever. I have these analogies, but at the end of the day, this is what we're going to accomplish in this 12 weeks rather than kind of charging it based on time. And I think any client would be able to tag. Absolutely. Right. And the idea of this notion of kind of food freedom and not feeling, not feeling tied to their next meal and fixated on their next meal is hugely impactful for at least my type of clients. Right. And I know probably for Erin's too, right. Finally letting that go is priceless.
Oh, right.
And based on my past experience, I have found that takes about 12 weeks, and then perhaps it's a conversation of what we think can be accomplished in the next 12 weeks based on certain goals, right? I mean, this is where I think like health coaches that focus on weight loss and fat loss run into issues, right?
I was going to say that. I've heard coaches say, you'll lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. It's like,
okay, well, don't guarantee things that are outside of your control. So these are the things that here's what new coaches who may not have a lot of conviction or confidence around, because confidence will come through actually doing the work with clients and having experience. So you can say, these are the things that we're going to cover, and this is where I think we're going to end. Here's the greater truth about being a human being, is that you may fly through this. You may just need to focus more on this part of the 5 pillars that I cover, right? And so you let yourself off the hook that this is what I promised to do. And, I can't guarantee that you're going to go through this if you don't do the work, but you say it in a way that's really empowering to the client, but you let yourself off the hook. Cause like the new coaches are like, wait a minute, I don't actually really know. I think this is what's possible, but then the client, one of my clients, she created a program. There's 3 parts. She helps people do amino acid therapy for their brain for anxiety and depression.
Wow.
It's really fascinating nutritional stuff. And she had 3 pillars in her program, and she realized she just needed to take one out of them. So she adjusted her program because people needed more time with the nutrition component. because it's one thing to know what to do. Then there's all this habit change stuff. So
Yeah.
if you educate your clients on like, this is what we're going to do, but we're going to go at your pace. And sometimes you may need more time here, and that's on you, and we'll adjust it. And you may want to renew. Like part of the happy little practice method is like, when you serve clients supremely well, like not half of them will renew.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that you need less marketing than you think.
Right.
I hear that all the time. It's like, I'm just not ready to let you go, you know? And I'm like, all right, if you don't feel ready, that's fine. You know, let's dig deeper as to why you don't feel ready. What do we need to shore up? And, you know, it's just a fantastic coaching conversation. And if I were trying to scale that, you can't scale that, you know? But what you can do is charge more for it, right? Get more out of it, get better results, where now maybe as a new coach charging whatever you're going to charge, I have a lot more confidence of charging about double, you know, what you've been charging in the past.
Yeah, because you get better and better.
Yep. Well, that's
Absolutely.
one aspect of scaling that nobody's talking about is
Yeah.
like just become a really masterful coach that people want to pay more money for, right?
There's some beautiful books out there about the one thing kind of approach and kind of having a minimalist approach to business. And one of them, I don't remember the title, talks exactly about that. Like, just be so good at the thing. Like, I can't be good at all the things. I can't be good at hosting events. I can't do all the things, but you know, for example, at the end of the last year, I tried a new offer, and it was good. But I realized like it wasn't as good as the 2 offers that I have, just two types of coaching, you know, like the setting up of the business or restructuring the business and then monetizing it. That's it. And just going deeper on that and shoring that up and perfecting it was such a relief, because then I can the extra energy I have, I can do a bit more marketing perhaps or whatever. And it was just enough, you know, it is enough when you do it really well. Go deep instead of broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always talk about this concept of predictability. When you have one thing, you can't, understanding that the client that comes to you, every client is completely unique, obviously, little snowflake. But you get really masterful at delivering your one thing. It's almost not like work, do you know? And I was sharing that every single day I got on the phone with clients and talk about kind of the same stuff. Like it's kind of always the same questions that come up and kind of always the same hurdles in the context of different lives and different scenarios. But as it turns out, I love talking about this because it's my one thing. It's my absolute favorite thing to talk about. It's my zone of genius. It doesn't feel like work. I can and do answer the same questions all day, every day for my clients. And I love it. And it's never gotten old and it's never gotten boring. And there's that element of joy that I think is not necessarily celebrated in building a practice that's so just so deeply connected to what you love to do.
I think it's kind of told that you get bored with that, but I find that you don't get bored with that. You have new people, like they're all different puzzles. I'm answering the same things all the time. It makes me feel really competent. I'm like, I'm super useful to these people in like my life. People actually listen to me. Like my kids don't listen. My husband doesn't listen.
Yep.
People think I'm great.
Yeah, I know that answer. I know that answer. I got an answer for that. I got answers. Like I've got the answers to the questions these folks are asking. Yes.
It's amazing. And there's always like, and then should you get like this kind of, I need to do something else, then you take that concept, go deeper. Yeah. You take one thing and maybe you write a little book about it.
That's right.
To deepen your marketing, or you turn it into a webinar, you know, and you go deeper with that.
What I did with that was that's when I went into group. I'm like, okay, now that I've answered these questions 1,000 times, now I know what 30 questions I get asked the most. Right. I'm going to make a 30-day program that takes groups through and answers these questions for them on a day. Like day 1, you get this. On day 2, you learn this. On day 3, you learn this. In the 30 days, we can get through all of the questions and this little group program is a very low ticket thing, but hundreds of people join it. And it's no work for me because, again, like all these questions that I've answered, all this content that I've created is just is just delivered in an automated email sequence. It's zero work. I get on a Facebook Live and riff about it for 15, 20 minutes a day. And I love it because it's the same thing. I'm still talking about shit that I love talking about.
Right.
It's just another income stream, but it was no more work.
Well, there's something that you said that's really like for people to get is that when people like, I need to do group programs, and unless like, so 60-70% of my clients already have a business and they need to restructure, but there's also been brand new people like, I just want to set it up right. I need a group program because I don't have that many hours. I'm like, I'm telling you, you don't need that many hours to do this. And the greater truth is, before you do a group program, you need to know what you know. You said you know about your clients.
Exactly.
Like before I found like kind of a leverage way to do this setting up of the business or restructuring of the business, I had walked so many people through it. I'm like, I know exactly. It was very easy for me to outline the steps and put together the content. It was just already there.
Yeah.
So if you don't know that, you have to do the work of kind of earning that.
Yeah. It sounds hard. Almost impossible to me to start with a group program. When people say that, I'm going to start with a group. I'm like, what? How are you going to do that? Like to me, that just, that's daunting. We always tell people, we teach it in our school. Look, we encourage you to start with one-on-one. You can do whatever you want, but our encouragement is start with one-on-one, figure out who you are as a coach, learn how to coach, A. B, start to collect and curate this encyclopedia of questions and, content that seems to bubble up constantly and consistently. Then build a group. And like, I don't know how you start with, I literally don't know how you would do that.
I had to do it early on, because to your point, Karin, I kind of thought like I didn't have a whole lot of time, right? I was working full time, mom of 4, and I had just opened my gym and I had limited time. But also I owned a CrossFit gym that lended itself very well to kind of a group dynamic. So I thought that would be a great idea. But I will tell you, I had to every single time I ran it, I refined it and had to change it and do it differently. But also in Illinois, and this is the case in some states, we run into some scope of practice concerns around advice and information and things like that. And group coaching can be very protective. But what I realized was in that format, what that wasn't really coaching. That was education and facilitation.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't really coaching. And I think you can have that dynamic, but it's not coaching. And there's still room to really get good at building coaching skills and being able to predict what your clients are going to be going through and what kind of questions they're going to have. And it is different. My coaching clients ask very different questions than the clients that might join a group program. Their investment in the outcome is different. The type of questions they ask are different, and the relationship is very different. So it's just two different things. But it's not that I wasn't doing individual coaching. It was just kind of much smaller scale. And I was just trying to figure out how this kind of fit into this other dynamic, right? This gym that I had opened.
But that's also puts you in a different category. You were already in the industry of health.
Yeah.
Like you weren't like brand new. You knew what you were talking about, and like adding a different service to that. It like that, I would put that in a different category of, okay, where a group could work. Because you have an existing business and things like that. But when you're starting from scratch, I'm sure some people can teach you how to do that. I just don't.
Yeah, no, but my first clients were all individual clients. They were soccer moms and dads from where my kids played sports, right? And they were old colleagues of mine that were in that industry that I was in that was so unhealthy that were like, all right, well, Laura understands my lifestyle and she can help me navigate this. I mean, those were my first individual clients, and it was super rewarding to be able to impact the lives of these people that I've known. Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with starting there. That's how I started my business. I didn't have ClickFunnels. I wasn't like putting out Facebook ads. These were people that I interacted with on a daily basis because I walked the walk and talked the talk, and they reached out for help. And that's how I learned.
We can't confuse like the tools of coaching for like actually coaching and doing the work. Because sometimes people show up and they're like a danger to themselves because they know just enough to like be messing around with their business, but not actually creating results. You know, like we can be busy. Like our culture really glorifies busy. And I'm like, that's like easy to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it all, do everything. I'm really interested in like, how do we, like if that option doesn't feel sustainable for me, like I want to figure out like, who are the people making great money as a company of one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and doing great work, you know, not just about the money. I don't mean it in that way.
No, yeah.
Well, I think what the consistent, I don't know, like when I think about those people who are making great money as a company of one, I think what, maybe this is just through my lens, but what seems to be consistent is they're doing what they love. And I see so many coaches who believe that entrepreneurship is meant to be this terrible hustle, like hustle hard, hustle, slay the day, whatever. And it's like, I mean, you don't have to, like, I feel like there's an element of it that should feel easy and comfortable and right. And to your point, we glorify busy, we glorify the hustle, we brag about how busy our schedules are, which is ridiculous. So culturally, it's sort of like, well, this is supposed to suck. Entrepreneurship is supposed to be a drag, and I don't think that's true at all. And when I see people who to me are successfully crushing it in entrepreneurship, they seem to be pleasantly enjoying it.
Yeah. I see some people, like I've had some mentors who are still running empires, and there's some that I'm so happy for them because I can see like the joy of how much they enjoy that, you know, and you can see that, and you can also see the ones where it's like this other thing that, I don't know, it's about proving something or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I am also married to a coach who has been coaching for 23 years. And so when he and I get together, he's always been the one that, you know, left to my own devices, I'd just be working. And he was like, this business is, you know, yes, we're making a difference. Yes, we want to have meaningful conversations and be helpful. All that's a given, but it is here to fund our life, not to become our life.
Exactly.
And I'm like, right.
Yeah. I need to be brought down for that too. My husband is like that too. You know, he said, we have no time for ourselves because we're always working. And that's part of the reason why we're moving, right? Because I want to be living in the environment that allows me to live the life that I want to live. And oh, by the way, the benefit of that is it's less expensive. I have a lower mortgage. I don't have to work as hard to be able to live that lifestyle. That's part of the motivation. And you're absolutely right. As far as just the reason we work is so that we can enjoy our lives. That should be it. It shouldn't be to just kind of pay the bills and then get up and go work again, you know?
Right. I think like that, in summary of all that, like most coaches, especially if you have a family life, not that everyone should have a family life. I'm not that kind of mom where I think like, if you're not parenting, you're missing out. I'm like, probably very sane.
That's right. There's a lot of benefits.
And I come to your house. But it's like for most of us, we need a very sane approach. And this is one way, but certainly there are other ways as well.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking back to last summer. So like summers are very fleeting where I live. It's like, boom, okay, that was summer. Okay, it's winter again. How did that happen?
We have that here too.
And last summer I worked my ass off. I worked and I was working 16-hour days with all the things that I had to do. And I'm not gonna glorify it by sort of martyring myself, but I just did. I took on way too many clients. I had a lot of big projects on the go. I worked the whole summer and then it was gone. And part of that came from scarcity. It's like, I just need the clients. I need the clients, need the money. I need the money. I need the clients. I need to be successful. And then, but what I missed out on was summer and my passions and my hobbies. And I didn't even ride my horses. I didn't even get to, hang out at my beautiful property and see my friends. And it was like, holy shit. The only thing that's important is my time. I could not care less. I had all that money from working my ass off. And what did I get? Who cares? Like, and I don't know why it took me 43 years of life to learn that, but this is going down the rabbit hole of upbringing and the lessons you're taught from, your childhood. But at this point, the reason why I love the happy little practice is like, I'm not taking clients this summer. Like I'm closing the books in end of March. If you didn't get in, I'm opening them up again in September. And
I love that.
that's wild to me. It's like, okay, I'm just going to miss out on how many dozens of clients am I not going to get in April, May, June, July, and August? But it's like, yeah, but think of all the time I'm going to have. Holy moly. And I'm so excited, right? It's just such a
Wow.
paradigm shift and
Yeah.
a difficult quantum leap to make.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep your big thinking to make a little practice that really works for you really work. So I too started wanting to take all of the summer off, July and August. Kids have a camp they love in like early July. And my family's in Switzerland. It costs a pretty penny to go there in the summer. And I want to go there every other summer. And if I'm not there, I want to be in the Adirondacks where I live. I'm like, and my kids are going to be, I want to enjoy them. And it was scary to be like, I'm shutting it down in August, And,
Yeah.
but if you have clients where part of the kind of onboarding is they understand, like, when are your work hours? They're in programs. So it's not like the money stops in August. Like, payments continue. They're still going to get their X amount of time of coaching with me. It just may not include August. So I always frame it in a benefit for them. I'm like,
Right.
I take the last week off of the month. I don't have client sessions at all, or, and I'm working on the business. I'm not like at the spa. Sometimes I get a facial, and do appointments and take care of life. But it's just like a life preservation thing for me. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to my best friend every week. So I'm an introvert, even though I may not, like, I don't know, classically present as one. And so I present that. I'm like, coaching happens the first 3 weeks of the month.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Sometimes I'll take a client like who just started and I want her to get her in. So I always start with like a little bit of a 90-minute kind of jump start. Mm-hmm. And so I might schedule them. Like, I'll make it concessions when it makes sense, but right. I frame it and you language it in whatever it is that you want that makes you happy in your business, that makes you feel like wealthy. Mm-hmm. A lot of us think like the wealth is always more money, but when we think about it, I know it sounds corny, but one of my favorite things to do is have a really slow start in the morning. So I don't talk to anybody before 10, also because that fits my get kids off to school. I like the last week off to just kind of think about the business and do things and move things forward. So what do I need to communicate in a way that's a benefit to my client? Not because I'm making stuff up, but truly. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, this is your week to practice being on your own.
Week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Call me for sure.
Yeah.
Figure it out. But
lots of companies have like summer hours, right? Where they're shortened or it's a 4-day work week or whatever, because this is life and we're all here to live life and live a great life. And we should be able to enjoy it while still supporting ourselves. So why can't you build that into your own practice? You're the boss.
Mm-hmm. And if we're in it for the long haul, like it's really like having our own business isn't easy peasy, but it's really worth it. And so it's worth it to kind of like, all right, I may not get all the things done that I think I should have a clone and I would just keep her in the office and she would just get it all done. But that's not really going to happen. So I just have to be patient and know I'm like, I've been in here for a while. I'm going to be here another 20, 30 years. I'm not going anywhere.
I love it. Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
So the happy little practice is really, if you were to kind of identify the target coach, right? So this is typically somebody who either can't or does not want to work 40 hours a week, but still wants to earn, a full-time income.
Yes.
And is comfortable with the notion that, you know what, we're going to get you to where it's enough for you to live the life you want to live. And so that number is going to move for some people. Right. Yeah. And that's actually what finally gave me the confidence to leave finance, by the way, is I realized, you know what, if I wasn't living that lifestyle, I actually don't need to make that kind of income. Right. I need it, when I really thought about it. So that's when, and it's enough. And I'm happier, and every year that I'm in this business, my income grows. Mm-hmm. I may at some point get back there. I'm not that far off. Right. Mm-hmm. But just knowing that I didn't have to have more because I had enough and that what I was sacrificing to have more wasn't worth it. Yeah. But does that kind of sum things up?
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So I know that we've got a lot of people that are going to hear this conversation and be like, ding, yep, ding, yep, ding. How do I reach Karin? Where do I go? So I would love for you to just share where people can find you, how people can reach out to you, and then of course anything else you might want to add as it relates to kind of what it is you can help people accomplish for themselves.
You can go to KarinRozell.com. That's Karin with an I.
Mm-hmm.
And there are quite a few webinars, pre-recorded classes that will give you a really strong foundation in the happy little practice model. It'll make sense for you. Usually when I say happy little practice, it's repelling enough to the people who are like, that's too cute.
Mm-hmm.
And it's instantly like, oh, I need to learn more. Mm-hmm. So go watch there's a signature talk one that is what I was just talking about. That's my signature talk. It's called Small Practice, Big Results. And you can find it at KarinRozell.com/webinars. And there's other ones on my speaker page that you can find as well. But that's the one that goes into like, okay, exactly how it works. I go into the numbers. I give you a case study. It's not fluff. It's all educational. And then, on my website, if you want to talk with me, you can do that too. There's a little application process.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. I love this conversation. It was so good. So good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing something just a little different than what we're normally hearing out there. And it's empowering to imagine that it can be big enough. Business can be big enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think people have this, I think all this comes from a scarcity mindset, like something you said, Erin, right? Just this, I have to make X amount of dollars in order to whatever, feel successful, accomplish whatever. And I'm going to go on the record as I think you can make that. And I don't think you have to run yourself ragged. I don't think you need to be working 50, 60 hours a week to pull in $250,000 a year if you're structured right.
Yep. Right.
If you want to make millions and build an empire, that's different.
Fill your boots.
Different. And that's for a different person, right? But I don't think you have to run yourself ragged to live a really well-paid, fulfilling life. And this sounds like it's a great blueprint to help people get there.
Marianne Williamson once said, I think it was her, she said, if you want to manage a big following, you first have to manage a small following. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. You can always scale up. You can always scale up later. It's up to you, but you got to create a foundation. So there you go.
Absolutely. Nice. Thank you for bringing it all together and making it real. I enjoyed the conversation so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.